have made a series of videos explaining why I'm convinced that Lucy Letby is innocent. You can go back and watch those before you watch this one if you would like. I think the main thing that got her into this position was the fact that the hospital was struggling and the doctors were unable to keep up and were also then unable to explain why some of the deaths and collapses happened due to their limited knowledge. I ultimately believe this entire investigation starts and stops there. Everything else that relates to Lucy, like her appearance at these shifts, the post-it notes, the Facebook searches, the handover sheets in her diary, and anything else, I believe is just confirmation bias of the theory that was created that she was doing intentional harm. I'm not an expert in this area. I am studying psychology, but mostly it's because I've done a lot of digging and I've been fascinated by this area of human behavior for a long time. So these are just my opinions, but I do think they hold some weight. I know that Lucy's family have been very negatively affected by the clips of her being arrested being shown in the Netflix documentary. I am only going to show one clip, none of the ones that involve going into her bedroom, and I think it is helpful in assessing her behaviour and her reaction and affirmation of her innocence.
Lucy, I need you to listen to me very, very carefully. I'm going to read out some information to you now, okay? It's important you listen to me. Between March 2015 and July 2016, the neonatal the Countess of Chester Hospital experienced high mortality rates of babies in their care.
I think the way that she is walking around and looking, the way that she is standing, the way that she is not really saying anything or making any movements is mostly due to a state of shock at this point in time.
Got a caution, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm the defence. Not mentioning the questions, something which you later line in court.
This is not something she expected at all. She is trying to take it all in and keep herself together at this point.
Do you understand what I've just read out to you?
I think it is interesting to note that it is as soon as the police officer stops talking that she realizes what he has said and she gives herself permission to cry. I think it's quite clear in this clip that her tears are very genuine.
So we have to stay with you to make sure that you remain with us and nothing else happens to you or to us.
I think someone who's quite callous and who would also be aware of investigations going on would have a different reaction during a moment like this. I believe that theatrics would play into it, and I believe they would be ready to have some sort of defense or to show some sort of over the top emotion in order to play into the fact that there's no way they could have done this. Her initial sort of deer in the headlights look, followed by sitting down and crying, is both in line with her personality and is also in line with someone who is receiving news that they are shocked by and then immediately emotional about. In multiple cases of arrests of people who are guilty, you will most likely see someone who is calm, almost giving over to the fact that it's happening, or someone who is overly emotional in a slightly disingenuous way as a tactic to try and persuade people of their innocence. I think something I found really fascinating was the way that Lucy acted during her interrogations. I think it's interesting that people have perceived this to be cold and emotionless. But I think from a psychology perspective, it's very interesting to see how still Lucy is. People who are guilty of a crime and find themselves in an interrogation room are often quite restless due to nervous energy.
Fight or flight is nothing more than noting the physiological changes that occur when someone's under stress. Stress can indicate lying. For example, decrease in salivation that'll make somebody swallow deeply, or increased heart rate, or increased adrenaline to the hands and legs. Because our primitive brain wants to tell us to either stand and fight or run away. So it provides extra energy to your limbs. When you're sitting there in an interrogation and you want to run, but you can't, many times you'll fidget with your hands or your legs, or you'll bring them up and then try to cover them in a grooming gesture.
I think Lucy's stillness and complete lack of fidgeting is because she is, at this point in time, mostly scared and taking it very seriously.
Okay, this interview has been recorded. It's now recording every word that you said in this interview. Introduce yourself, please.
Lucy Letby,
Date of birth.
4th of the 1st, 1990.
Of course, you have to be careful with these things, that you don't make black and white assumptions that movement is one thing and stillness is another. But I do think it is an interesting thing to note in comparison to many others. Say, in comparison to Chris Watts, who murdered his wife and children and then finds himself in an interrogation room.
Chris, while he was talking to Special Agent Coder, made a lot of movements towards his neck area. Special Agent Coder actually came out of the room, and he said he may have strangled her.
You feel very exposed when you're guilty of something, and it's very hard to sit still when someone is staring straight at you, asking question after question after question. I think another really interesting thing to note on the psychological side of Lucy's interrogations is how brief she is with her answers. It's quite common in interrogations of guilty people for them to extend their answers to give significantly more information and to use far more words than is necessary. This comes from a place of, if I continue to talk and I give a lot of information, it makes me look more innocent because I have so much to say in my defense. Lucy doesn't choose to unnecessarily elaborate. She also doesn't choose to come up with alternative options or reasons for why things happened.
Dr. Evans said her collapse is consistent with the effect of an air embolus caused by an injection of air into her circulation when the designated nurse was not in the room. You were.
People who are guilty of crimes often have ideas of how this may have happened in different ways and are very quick to offer this when they are asked how it may have happened.
Have you got any explanations for that, Lucy?
You can probably imagine this in your own life. Let's say you were not supposed to eat the last piece of chocolate, and let's say you didn't. If someone says to you, "Did you eat the last piece of chocolate?" you would probably say, "No." However, if you did eat the last piece of chocolate and you were feeling guilty about it, and someone said to you, "Did you eat the last piece of chocolate?" it's more probable that you'll say something like, "No, I didn't even really feel like chocolate today." Or, "No, why would I eat it when I know that I wasn't supposed to?" Or, "No, I didn't even know there was one piece of chocolate left." To be asked quite confronting questions and to give a simple answer is significantly more common in interrogations of people who are innocent.
Had you got any cause to go into nursery one at all?
I don't remember.
Right. Were you working at nursery one?
I don't think I was, but I don't recall which baby I was looking after.
Okay. And you don't remember the process of how you ended up in nursery one with the reasons?
No.
Are you aware of why you required resuscitation?
No, I don't recall the events leading up to that. I just know that he had resuscitation.
Jodi Arias is a famous case of someone who murdered their boyfriend, and in her interrogation, you see multiple examples of these things that I'm talking about. For starters, you see a lot of fidgeting, and also when faced with a question, she doesn't give a simple answer. She elaborates on it. She repeats herself. She even says strange, extreme things to try and say, "Of course it wasn't me," like going back to the chocolate idea.
I don't think you're being completely honest with me about that trip.
I honestly got lost. It's bad timing.
Were you at Travis's house on Wednesday?
Absolutely not. I was nowhere near Mesa. I was nowhere near Phoenix.
You were there. Quit playing this game. It's time for you to just come out and
I didn't
tell
know.
me.
I did not hurt Travis. I did not hurt Travis. I wouldn't do that to him.
It's over.
Could it have been my blood from before?
Your image is not important right now. Saving the rest of your life is.
Listen, if I'm found guilty, I don't have a life. I'm not guilty. I didn't hurt Travis. if I hurt Travis, if I killed Travis, I would beg for the death penalty. It just seems so impossible. I want to see it. I want to know. I mean, I'm not a murderer, but I guess if I were to do that, I would wear gloves or, something.
There are times during Lucy's interrogation where she gets emotional. I think it's really interesting and important to note that her emotion is genuine, but also she doesn't take the opportunity to play it up. The tears could flow. She could start to sob about how innocent she is, how it never could be her. Her simple, genuine, brief moments of emotion are far more in line with what we see when innocent people are being interrogated.
This would happen. This would get involved.
And is that what happens?
Losing a job.
And was it a job that you enjoyed?
Yeah, that's my job.
From the defence perspective, she was a devoted nurse who had been moved away from the job she loved, who was mentally anguished, distraught.
In comparison to, say, this case, where this woman has just committed murder, and she is using her tears as a way to try and prove extreme emotion, and also as a way to avoid eye contact. You also see her giving excessive details whilst sobbing and wailing through what she's trying to explain.
So you fall asleep between midnight. You think that you get up around 3 because that's your kind of your usual
normal time.
Okay. And then you go back to bed.
Shut the door, the kids are in there, I went back to sleep.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like I was hard asleep when it sounded like something crashed in the kitchen. It sounded like something falling, which seems to happen a lot in that house. But the house is torn apart right now because we're working on it. I've got stuff sitting everywhere.
Okay.
It was loud.
Like help me out here. Was it?
So we have a wire rack in the shower, and it's on a suction hook thing, and it fell a couple days ago, and it was loud, and it sounded just like that. Not just like that, but loud like that, like a racket.
So no sounds of like glass breaking or anything like that. Just kind of a loud, like you said, a ruckus.
Yes. Kind of laid there for a second. See if kids woke up, which they didn't. It seems like there's always something stupid once a week that him and I get up and see because of the highway or something. And I got up and I peeked in the living room and he was laying there, and I went to the kitchen and turned the light on in the living room, and then
Okay.
I looked in there first before I went to the kitchen, and it looked like he was sleeping.
Okay.
I swear I heard him snore.
Did you happen to see him when you got up to go to the bathroom? Did you happen to see him there then? Do you remember?
You have to look around the corner to see him.
Okay, so you didn't go and see him at that time? Okay.
I just went to the bathroom.
Okay.
The documentary also tried to get us to see her as reasonably cold, but it's interesting to note how her hair changes throughout the different interrogations. By the time we get to this one, where her hair is slightly shorter and darker, this process has been going on for a lot longer. She has already answered many of these questions, and she's at a point where she knows that they are looking for her to slip up, and so ultimately saying things like no comment works better in her favor, unfortunately, because they're not really looking for reasons for her to be innocent. They're looking for reasons for her guilt. And even this far along in the investigation, we still see no nervous fidgeting, maintaining eye contact, no long-winded answers, and no forced tears.
If that's what she says, I don't recall specifically where I was.
Is there a reason why you remembered the administering of the medication and not the collapses?
No, I really remember the medication from looking through the notes and seeing that I obviously did sign for medication.
Is it because you remember the administration of medication? Because that's when you took the opportunity to attack and administer air? No?
According to interrogation and criminal psychology, Lucy's interrogations give off all the signs of someone who has nothing to hide. One of the main criticisms of Lucy has been that she seems to show no or little emotion. As we know, Lucy has been described by her friends and colleagues as someone who was quiet and studious, and at times even a little socially awkward. A fascinating and very sad case of another miscarriage of justice is that of a boy named Michael Crow. His sister was found stabbed, and he very quickly became a suspect. In the journal article titled From Caller to Suspect, Identifying Behaviors That Trigger Suspicion in 911 Calls, it says, cases in which police targeted innocent individuals reveal that an inappropriate level of emotion is often cited as an origin of suspicion. Michael Crow was coerced into falsely confessing to his sister's murders, in part because detectives thought he reacted with too little emotion.
However, Michael seems almost relieved to be cooperating and submits readily to the voice stress analyzer.
Are you sitting down? Yes. Do you know who took Stephanie's life?
No.
Is today Thursday?
Yes.
Did you take Stephanie's life?
No.
8 minutes later, the truth exam is complete.
Let me go over these charts and I'll be back here in a couple minutes, okay?
He has just completed a voice stress exam. Now, Detective Chris McDonough returns with the results.
What did you think? What were your thoughts through the whole thing?
I don't know. Nervous.
Nervous? Okay, let's go over that. What were you nervous about?
I don't know, that it might be wrong.
Okay, in what way?
It might say I did kill Stephanie.
Okay, and why would it say that?
I don't know, because everyone's already treating me like that.
The detective shows Michael the charts of his performance on the so-called truth exam. They indicate he lied when he answered no to question 12, do you know who took Stephanie's life?
Maybe there's something we need to understand about Michael and about your sister that we didn't understand, and maybe somebody could have helped. It's okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel.
I really,
okay,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why I'd say that. I swear to God, I don't know.
But the police think they know. Their theory on this second day of the investigation is that a very smart, very lonely, and very angry Michael Crow stabbed his sister to death. His likely motive, a rage-fueled case of sibling rivalry.
After only a short period of time, they were able to get Michael Crow to write down a confession for something he never did.
You're going to need some help through this.
One way to get this help, detectives suggest, is for Michael to write a letter to his dead sister asking for her forgiveness. Tools like this one that tend to ease a suspect's burden of guilt. Left alone in the interrogation room for the next 24 minutes, here is some of what Michael Crow writes to the sister the police believe he killed. Dear Stephanie, they are putting me through hell, and I think that's what I deserve. If I did do this, then I am insane. The only way I know I did is because they told me I did. I want you to know that I was not myself when I did this.
Okay, let's go over that. What were you nervous about?
I don't know, that it might be wrong.
What were you afraid of?
That they were going to think I had done something wrong.
I did kill Stephanie.
Okay, and why would it say that?
I don't know, because everyone's already treating me like that.
I was blaming myself. But not because I'd done something, because the way people were making me feel.
I think Lucy did an incredible job of maintaining her composure, being true to herself, and answering the questions simply and plainly. Lucy's behaviour speaks again to the prosecutor's fallacy that I mentioned in one of my previous videos. If you start with the idea in your head that Lucy is guilty, then her behaviour of being somewhat cold and withdrawn is more affirmation of her guilt. However, that does not mean that if you have someone who is perhaps somewhat cold and withdrawn, that you therefore have a guilty person. There are multiple other explanations for why she may be acting this way. Although ultimately I think it's unnecessary because nothing points to her. I think it's just interesting to have another affirmation of her innocence. So in order to summarize the videos I've made, this whole thing starts and finishes with the increase in collapses and deaths at the counters of Chester Hospital. And the fact that the doctors who were there and the people that they reach out to were unable to explain the nuances of some of these quite complex deaths. The expert panel, run by Shu Lee, were able to find reasons, and they were reasonably complex. Every single other element that has been used against Lucy is an affirmation of the theory that they created. It is a confirmation bias. I think Dr. Dowie Evans' assessment and conclusion of air embolism is one of the most confronting and damning parts of this entire investigation. As it states in one of the appeal reports given to the court, his conclusion that air embolus was the cause of the collapse was therefore based upon a combination of factors. Individually, none of those factors was diagnostic of air embolus. He accepted that changes in skin color viewed in isolation could not lead to a particular diagnosis. He accepted that the diagnosis of air embolus was a diagnosis of exclusion, in the sense that you have excluded other explanations for the collapse. It's not a diagnosis. It's a, I can't find anything else, therefore it must be this.
I also found it really concerning how a retired paediatrician was actually allowed to change not only the cause of death for some of these babies, but the manner of death. The manner of death needs to be determined by a coroner, not a retired paediatrician.
A gross limit of knowledge that meant the doctors no longer had to look at themselves as potentially having missed something or done something wrong. The only thing the consultants got right was the cause for concern that there was an increase in collapses and deaths. In my opinion, their unwillingness to dive very deeply into these deaths and collapses and to investigate thoroughly by drawing upon the proper professional opinion is partly due to the fact that they didn't really want to find something there. Owning up to mistakes is hard at the best of times, and it's much harder when you are in a position of authority or leadership.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
How many times do I have to say it?
I'm just trying to make sure your testimony is clear.
Well, if it can't be any clearer than I've never taken drugs, then incidents like that could never have happened.
To be a doctor and to know that something you did or didn't do caused the death of someone in your care would be an excruciating thing to face. Ryan Goldman is a doctor who is paving the way for other doctors to be allowed to be human and to support each other when they make mistakes. He has some incredible things to say.
My name is Brian Goldman. I am a redefined physician. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm sorry about that. But I strive to learn one thing that I can pass on to other people. And I'd like to be able to say to you that my worst mistakes only happened in the first 5 years of practice, as many of my colleagues say, which is total BS. Some of my doozies have been in the last 5 years. That's the system that we have. It's a complete denial of mistakes. It's a system in which there are two kinds of physicians: those who make mistakes and those who don't.
Can expectant mothers coming into the unit have confidence?
I think those parents can expect as high a level of care on our unit than any other unit in the country.
We work in a system where errors happen every day, where 1 in 10 medications are either the wrong medication given in hospital or at the wrong dosage, where hospital-acquired infections are getting more and more numerous, causing havoc and death. In this country, as many as 24,000 Canadians die of preventable medical errors. In the United States, the Institute of Medicine pegged it at 100,000. In both cases, these are gross underestimates, because we really aren't ferreting out the problem as we should. And here's the thing. In a hospital system where medical knowledge is doubling every 2 or 3 years, we can't keep up with it. Sleep deprivation is absolutely pervasive. We can't get rid of it. So if you take the system as I was taught and weed out all the error-prone health professionals, well, there won't be anybody left. The redefined physician is human, knows she's human, accepts it, isn't proud of making mistakes, but strives to learn one thing from what happened that she can teach to somebody else. She shares her experience with others. She's supportive when other people talk about their mistakes. And she points out other people's mistakes, not in a gotcha way, but in a loving, supportive way, so that everybody can benefit. And she works in a culture of medicine that acknowledges that human beings run the system, and when human beings run the system, they will make mistakes from time to time. So the system is evolving to create backups that make it easier to detect those mistakes that humans inevitably make, and also fosters in a loving, supportive way places where everybody who is observing in the healthcare system can actually point out things that could be potential mistakes and is rewarded for doing so, and especially people like me, when we do make mistakes, we're rewarded for coming clean.
Things went right at the Countess and people wanted answers. The doctors couldn't explain it. The hospital probably didn't want to admit that they were doing things wrong. And they came up with a theory, and they chased that theory down. Now, not only had the hospital not done anything wrong, and the doctors not done anything wrong, but they were heroes for finding the person who did it. And yet,
we did not find any murders. There were serious problems related to medical care of patients at this hospital.
There were plausible reasons, very, very plausible reasons for these babies' deaths. There was a combination of babies being in the wrong place, delivered in the wrong place, delayed diagnosis, and inappropriate or absent treatment. There are clearly systemic factors that are at play that we've identified, as well as individual factors.
That this was a neonatal unit, like so many in our country, that was in crisis. 99% of those that I represent, 99% are guilty.
When you look Lucy Letby in the eyes, did she kill those babies in your mind?
No, absolutely not. And
the inappropriate appointments of experts, there really needed to be a multidisciplinary panel.
In November, the college called for the hospital to conduct a thorough, external, independent review of each unexpected neonatal death. But the deaths weren't investigated fully.
Is Lucy Letby a psychopath? And of course, in terms of the research that I did about nurses that will kill in a hospital setting, she is an outlier. She didn't make her colleagues feel particularly nervous to be around her, with one or two exceptions. She doesn't quite fit in terms of the red flags that one would normally associate with nurses that would kill in a hospital setting.
She didn't strike me as too different to most nurses on the unit.
You didn't have any worries about her doing the job?
I don't think anybody did.
So those diary entries which seem so incriminating, they might not have meant what you think. Letby also wrote things like, kill myself right now, hate my life, fear, panic, despair, why me? I haven't done anything wrong.
To me, these are external expressions of the mental anguish that she will have been suffering.
So this might paint the picture of somebody in extreme distress and not necessarily a cold-blooded killer. This misplaced sense of responsibility can lead to intensify feelings of guilt, even if logically they know they're not to blame.
I do not see the notes as a confession or as an admission of guilt.
She thought she had good working relationships with both those consultants. And she was devastated that they thought what they thought. Absolutely devastated. She was broken, cried regularly in my arms and in my office. Why are they doing this to me? I've done nothing wrong, Karen.
And tiny, tiny, tiny guilt. Did we get the wrong person? There's guilt, just in case. Miscarriage of justice. I don't think there was a miscarriage of justice, but you worry that no one actually saw her do it.
No one actually saw her do it. No one actually saw her do it.